Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to one of the best BMWs I've driven, the X5. And this one is a plug-in hybrid. I was told to get this car on test by my good mate Joe Achilles. He convinced me that this was one of the best cars BMW make. And, well, I've never driven an X5 before, so I had no basis to kind of form an opinion on. But I've been driving it for the last week, and yeah, I've got lots to share with you. Now, first thing I want to cover off is the elephant in the room. And in this Brooklyn grey paintwork and with its size, it's, I guess, a bit elephant-like. But all joking aside, this car, when it was delivered to me earlier on in the week, it got backed off the delivery truck, and I just looked at it and thought, it doesn't actually look that big. Which is a silly thing to say, really, because it's an enormous car. It's 4.9 metres long, 2.2 metres wide, 1.7 metres tall, and it weighs 2.5 tonnes. But I think what's happened is, you know, back in its early days, the X5 was comparatively a very big car compared with everything else on the road. And now everything's got so big. Within the Mini group, a Mini Countryman is big, the X1, the X3, they've all got bigger and bigger and bigger. And that means that the X5 now doesn't actually look that big at all. And it's got quite a clever trick up its sleeve because it doesn't drive like a big car either. Now, the first way it drives like a smaller car is it has rear wheel steering, which in slow speed manoeuvring shortens up the wheelbase because the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction to the front wheels, so you get a much tighter turning circle. Because when you've got a car this big, one of my concerns always is manoeuvring it in car parks and tight places. In the old days, it used to be quite difficult to do that, but this actually, super simple. Then once you get going, the rear wheel steering starts to turn in the same direction as the front wheels, just to make changing lanes and so on the motorway a smoother process. But a big car that weighs 2.5 tonnes needs lots of grunt, and the drivetrain in this certainly delivers that. Now, the actual model designator for the car we have on test this week is the BMW G05 X5 xDrive50e M Sport LCI. Yeah, that means it's the really powerful one with a hybrid drivetrain. And one of my issues with SUVs that compete with this car when they first started doing plug-in hybrids is I'm pretty sure that the plug-in hybrid part was just put in the car to get better benefit in kind numbers to make these cars more attractive for company car buyers. The batteries were tiny, the motors weren't all that powerful, their all-electric performance was pretty woeful. But actually, we're now starting to see plug-in hybrids of this size that can actually do a decent job. So let's pop the bonnet. So first things first, under the bonnet is you have that iconic BMW 3-litre straight 6. But it's then coupled with a hybrid drivetrain and a big old battery. It's a 25.7 kilowatt hour battery. So if we talk electric only range first, we're looking at around about 100 kilometers or 60 miles. And this car, when it was delivered, had a full battery and it was showing about 58 miles. So I think real world, 50 to 60 miles, all electric range, certainly as long as you're not pushing on too much, is a realistic thing. And that makes this car very useful for short journeys to the shops and to the school run. When you put it in sport mode, however, the hybrid drivetrain couples up with that big 3-litre straight 6 to provide some pretty epic performance. So try 489 horsepower, 700 newton meters of torque, and even though this car weighs 2.5 tonnes, it'll do 0 to 62 in 4.6 seconds. And believe me, in a car this big, that feels incredibly fast and a bit, well, you wonder how it's possible, really. I mean, the laws of physics need to be bent significantly. First up, the boot in the X5 is big enough to be a mobile yoga and meditation studio. In all seriousness, the boot space in this car is huge. With it being a plug-in hybrid, you do lose a little bit of boot depth because the battery's just there. But with the seats up, you've got a massive payload, and then you've got some really nice features. So first thing, you've got this little split tailgate. But if you want to load stuff in and out, just watch the attitude of the car at the back. You see it starting to go down. Ooh. So it just drops the back of the car just to make access in and out a little bit more easy. I mean, it only does it by a few centimetres. It doesn't feel massive, but I'm sure it will help a little bit. You have got a tiny amount of underfloor storage to put things like, you've got like a cargo net thing just there, which is quite cool. And your towing eyes and so on. Your charge cables aren't going to fit under there, so they will be in the boot somewhere if you want to have them. But yeah, safe to say, huge, huge storage in this car. Now, I'm expecting quite big things from this car in terms of internal space. And it's not nearly as big as I thought it was going to be. This seat is set for me as a driver, so it's quite a long way back. And 6'3", 34 to 35 inch inside leg. It's all right. It's not quite as big as I thought it was going to be. Having said that, the interior materials and fit and finish of this car are really, really lovely. You've got a window blind there if you want to have a snooze while you've got your chauffeur driving you along. You've got climate control, heated seats, all of these things you would obviously expect at a car of this spec. But yeah, if you're sat behind me, you're not going to have as much room as you thought you might do. It's safe to say that there's an enormous amount of room up front. It's very spacious. It's got the big kind of double display that is quite common on all modern BMWs now. And in this car, in this size, it sits really nicely into the dashboard. You've still got the iDrive controller if you want to use that. The air conditioning and HVAC controls are kind of in the touchscreen, which is a little bit annoying. But the driving position is pretty good. The visibility is very good. You've got a lovely elevated driving position looking down across that lovely long bonnet. Storage compartments in the middle to store stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about price and spec before we go out on the drive. Now, there's good news and bad news for this. So the model we're in, starting price, I don't think is too horrendous. They start at £81,000. Now that, I can't believe I've just said not too horrendous, and £81,000 in the same sentence. The challenge with this car is it has £18,000 worth of options. Now BMW tend to option their press cars really well so that us car reviewers can see all of the various features and give you an opinion on them and whether they're things that you should or shouldn't spec. So a couple of things. Firstly, the exterior colour is called Brooklyn Grey. I've mentioned that already. It's not quite crayon, so this car can't join the crayon crew. It's a little bit more grey and less white than crayon. But this interior, it's called Coffee Black Extended Leather, and it is a £1,950 option. However, it's particularly lovely. The other options, I'm not going to bore you and go with all of them, but the punchy ones, the extended leather is a fairly punchy one. The pan roof, they call that a Sky Lounge panoramic glass roof. It's stunning. It gives lots of light into the car, but it is £2,650. The car has the Technology Plus pack, which is driver assistant, professional, parking assistant, the Harman Kardon surround system, which is excellent, by the way. It's got a very Gucci head-up display and gesture control, so I can do this and do stuff without actually touching the screen. £4,000 for that. The Comfort Plus pack, soft closed doors, rear side window blinds, which I've just raved about, heated and cooled cup holder, nice. Ventilated front seats, front comfort seats, front and rear heated seats, heated comfort system. I mean, it's lovely, 4,300 quid. And then the M Sport Pro pack, which is the sport brakes with pro calipers, M Sport Pro package, iconic glow kidney grille, the lights and shadow line, all of this stuff in here looks really cool when you're driving it at night time. That's £2,100. So all in all, this car that we're in is just shy by 200 quid of £100,000. So you've got to compare this car with something like, I don't know, a Range Rover, one of the big Mercedes, maybe even you look at some of the big Volvos, the XC90, you can get that north of 100 grand if you tick the right boxes. So I actually think from a price point of view, it kind of sits there or thereabouts, and it is a plug-in hybrid. They tend to be a little bit more expensive. But I really want to go for a drive in the car because it has multiple purposes for me. I know big cars like this, for a lot of people, are complete. They just don't understand the purpose of having a big car like this. And I think if you don't have a big family, I don't either. I like an SUV elevated driving position, but this car is just that little bit too big for me. An X3 would probably be about my size, like we have with our Macan. But it is, certainly if you had a family or if you're going to transport adults around, it's a perfect car for that. So let's go and do some driving. I want to explore the electric only range, and I want to explore the more performance settings, and go and try and find some nice roads and give it a bit of Yahoo, really. I'm going to start off the driving part of the review in electric only mode. I know I talk a lot about plug-in hybrids, and I am a big fan, and I know for a fact that there will be some of you watching this going, yep, I get plug-in hybrids, they're a great idea. And then there will be others of you that are going, why don't you just buy an EV? A hybrid has an electric drivetrain, an internal combustion engine drivetrain, the potential for more costly maintenance is there, the servicing is potentially more expensive. You're neither a great EV nor a great internal combustion engine, and you're dragging all this extra weight around. And I get all of those arguments. However, bear with me. Now that we're starting to see plug-in hybrids that will do 50, 60 miles, in some cases a little bit more than that, but a big car like this that can do 60 miles, I'm currently showing 52 miles of EV running. And let's face it, most of the time you're going to be doing that EV running is short journeys, town driving, that kind of thing, where you're not probably going to be going that fast. You're not going to want to be accelerating that quickly. So you don't need a uber performance EV. This is more than enough, more than you need. It will happily go up to 70 miles an hour if you need to do that. But at this speed I'm in the 30 mile an hour zone, I'm behind traffic. It's perfect. I'm just driving to the shops. I thought I'd go and take it into a car park first of all and just see how this big size format works. But it means that, a lot of the time you could be running this car on EV and making the most of off-peak electricity tariffs if you had one. But then if you could only afford one car, and as a family you weren't confident about having only an EV in the family as your only family car, plug-in hybrids kind of have the trick up their sleeve. If I wanted to do a long journey in this car that was more than 60 miles, I've got a petrol engine and I go to the garage and I put some fuel in, and at the moment I'm showing 400 miles of petrol range and 50 miles of EV range. So, I can just do long journeys, no range anxiety, no worries whatsoever. And that, for me, that's where plug-in hybrids really tick a big box. They're this fantastic gateway drug into all EV. You could maybe run a plug-in hybrid, see how you get on, and then take a step into all EV. Or, as many people do at the moment, and maybe this is a UK specific thing, you take advantage of the benefit in kind advantages you get for running a hybrid as your company car. So that's the kind of all EV performance of this. Now, this car doesn't have a DC charger on it, so it's only AC charging. So you're not able to nip in and do an ultra rapid charge to build up that battery charge. You're in the realms of charging this overnight on a wall box at home. So the next thing I want to do is go and just find a modern day car park and just see what it's like parking such a big car in a car park where the car park spaces haven't changed in size for the last, I don't know, 60 years or more. Now, really interestingly, in front of me is a Land Rover Defender 110. And when I ran one of those as a long-termer, admittedly it had the roof rack on it, but you had to be really careful with that coming into car parks. Now, this car park has a maximum height of 2.3 metres. And this car's only 1.7, so it's not a problem. But there are some SUVs out there where underground car parks in particular that maybe have a maximum height of 1.95 metres. You have to be really careful with big SUVs. So first bonus with the X5, it's not tall enough to have to worry about that. But when you come into a car park like this, you need to work out where you're going to park. I'm going to park in that space just there. No, I'm not, because that car has just, it's inched into the space a little bit. What should we do? I'm going to go, that one's a bit narrow. Now this one should do. Now, there is one of these funky parking assistant things in this car, but I'm not going to use that because I just don't really see the point of them. But what we have got is some lovely cameras that kind of show you all the different views, and if we watch that one there, it's quite Gucci. I said Gucci twice in this review now, that's not good. But, and also with that wing mirror there, you can actually see the rear wheel articulating as you put lock on, which is quite cool. Back up a little bit, back up a little bit. I reckon that's me in the space, just about. Park, handbrake on. So let's jump outside and see how much space I've got around me in this parking space. But yeah, parking this isn't a major issue. You just need to kind of keep an eye out for spaces that are wide enough, basically. Right, first up, have I got room to get out? Yes, just about. I think I've parked pretty well, to be fair. So we've got plenty of space that side. We come this side, plenty of space that side. It's not actually too bad, and it doesn't stick out the front too much. And if we wander around the back, it doesn't stick out the back too much. So as I said, maybe we're just getting used to big cars. I'm not sure, but this one fits in a standard size parking space. No worries at all. Okay, shopping done. Let's head out and find some nice roads. It's a beautiful day today, I have to say. Oh, now there's the speed bong. Easy peasy in BMW cars. You just push and hold the set button, turns the speed bong off. I was doing 31 miles an hour in a 30. And then my drive modes are down here. I've got, the next mode I'm going to go up into is hybrid. So I've put it in hybrid. The engine hasn't actually turned over. I'm still running as electric. But what will happen here is if I push on a little bit, there you go, the engine fires up. I've got this seamless transition from electric power to petrol stroke electric power. And I've now got, even in just the base hybrid mode, a really sharp throttle and a car that clearly has a lot of performance, which is always a good thing. And these bends up here are really nice, just to slowly start to build the car up into speed. It's got the most fantastic handling, and I know BMW used to have their marketing slogan, the ultimate driving machine, but you don't really expect that to be the case in a car that weighs 2.5 tons and that is this big. But honestly, the way this car handles and the way it performs is so impressive. Now, what I am going to do, because I'm a complete child, is I'm not going to stay in this hybrid mode too long. I'm going to push the sport button, and that's gone into sport mode. But what it's also done is on the main infotainment screen, I've now got sport, and I've got the option to do sport individual. And what that allows me to do, if I click on there, is there's a configuration in there, and I can basically choose the damping, so comfort or sport, steering, comfort or sport, and drivetrain, comfort or sport. So I've got steering and drivetrain in sport, and then the damping in comfort, and it gives me this lovely carpet smooth ride and epic performance. But in this sport individual, every time I push the throttle, it's just urging itself forward. It's just wanting me to go faster, begging me to put my foot down. It's not what I expected. And I'm not sure why it's taken me this long to drive an X5. I'm not sure which way around I'll put the videos, but last week I had the Z4 and I haven't driven one of those either. And I don't understand why now I've driven both of them, because they've both been such excellent cars. Hopefully this little roadster's not going to turn left here, and I am. Nice feeling on the brakes. But yeah, you feel the mass in the corners for sure. It's, you know, you can't hide it all, but it's got an understated noise to it, which is, now it kicks down a little bit, so I've got some paddles. I can basically pull a paddle, go to the manual gear change now. But what I would say is the gear change on these paddles isn't great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it in changing for itself mode, but just pull back the shifter and put it into sport gearbox and let it change. But yeah, it's really very impressive. Now let's just see if we'll do a bit of a acceleration from a dead stop here. Here we go. There's 60. It drives better when you're not using the paddles. And normally my go-to with any car that has the ability to go manual override is to change gear for myself, but the gear changes just aren't quite sharp enough for me. Yet when it's doing sport change for itself, it kind of sorts its life out and is impressive. It'll kick down every now and again, but just the way it covers the ground and the sporty feel it delivers in the drive belies its size. It shouldn't be able to do this at all. And I'm sitting here just thinking, if you've got a big family and you want one car to do a job, I mean, up until this point, that one car for me in the BMW lineup, if budget wasn't an issue, would be an M3 Touring or the M340i Touring, because they're brilliant, brilliant cars. But if you like your big SUVs, this, the way it just lets rip on the way out of the corners, you shouldn't be able to do that. But it has just a really nice, confidence-inspiring feel to it when you're going down a nice bit of road. The brakes are powerful, they're good feel into the corner on the way out. Little bit of just, not loose at the back, but just a little bit of movement at the back. It's just fantastic. Last couple of things, there's way too much piano black in here. This main console here is just a fingerprint magnet, piano black everywhere, and even on the main dash, lots of piano black. I think it would just have been nicer just to put like a brushed aluminium or something on there, but that being super picky now. But yeah, anyway, what are your thoughts of the BMW X5 xDrive50e M Sport LCI? In fact, I even remembered that one. I'm well chuffed with myself for that. But yeah, it's been a very impressive car, and I think it's the do-it-all car in the BMW range if you need that extra space. If you don't, then I'm guessing something like an X3 would probably be enough, just that little bit smaller. It's a bit like, and bear with me on this one, for me it's a bit like whenever I drive an RS4 or an RS6, the RS6 is a fantastic car, but it's just that little bit too big, and I always kind of err towards the RS4. And it's the same here. This is a brilliant car. It's just a bit too big. We've got used now to that mid-size SUV, Macan, dare I say it, Mini, Countryman, JCW size. And for us and our lifestyle, that's the perfect size. We don't really need a car this big. But if you do, you should definitely have a drive of one, because they're brilliant. Anyway, what do you think of the X5? Put it in the comments below, but if you enjoyed that one, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film. You take care, guys. Drive safe.